So this is a photo of Trafalgar Square in London during 1922, 100 years ago. It acts as a large intersection connecting different parts of the city together. And during the Industrial Revolution, we benefited from combustion engine cars, allowing people and resources to move in and out of the city. It essentially allowed the city to grow from the inside out.
Today, London looks a bit more like this. Through economic and industrial growth, the city has vastly expanded, with modern infrastructure, connectivity, and technological advancements pushing nature further afield.
Well, this isn't a story about London. This is, however, a story about the entire planet. This image shows the amount of light that emits from planet Earth into space. And the more light, so they're rendered actually as light mountains. So the more light in a specific area, the taller the mountain. And if you step back, it's clear to see the amount of material impact we've had as a species on the planet. So today we want to talk to you about how we can use design to help people and businesses reach net zero.
So when we talk about carbon emissions, we usually all think about images such as the one we have on the screen today. But how we need to realize it's our energy consumption that has enormous effect and enormous demand on the planet's resources. So don't get us wrong though, economic growth is great for everyone. However, are we aware of the trade-off?
So this is what the trade-off looks like. This chart shows a 100-year time period. And the red line indicates the amount of economic growth we've seen over that time period, which is over 100 trillion US dollars. And the black line shows the amount of carbon emitted into the atmosphere over the same period of time, which is 35 billion tons of carbon dioxide. Now, the correlation is very clear. The more the economy grows, the more materials and resources we need from the planet. So we need to change the way we build and design products and services to stop this trend. So what we really learned from the data is that our way of innovating over the past 100 years has always had a material dependency on the planet. And the question is how have we got to a point where we consume so much material that we're actually starving the planet of the resources it needs to survive? And this made us wonder, how have we, as designers, working across multiple countries, working in enterprises across the world, not being able to see the lasting effect and lasting impact of our design decisions? And also, how is it that planetary considerations is not even part of the design process at the moment? So to answer these questions, we have to actually go back in time.
So we studied something called UCD, which stands for User-Centered Design at Brunel University, where we focused solely on putting the human at the center of everything that we created, whether it's digital or services. However, after graduating, we entered an industry that was very much tech-led, developing products mainly based upon what the technology can do and not necessarily focusing it around the user needs and wants. So we'd often hear pushback. We'd often hear things such as, the technology can't do that.
We can't build that in time.
This way's way simpler.
Design's just too expensive.
Why do we need to talk to the users? Surely we know what they want, and so on.
However, we're proud to be part of the next generation of designers that spent the next 2 decades designing methods, processes, and tools that help the industry rotate from being technology-led to user-centered. And now user-centered design is simply common practice inside organizations, and it helps those organizations build better, deeper relationships with their customers. It actually forms a fundamental part of business strategy, which then proliferates throughout everything the organization does and all customer touchpoints. With this shift, we've seen amazing products and services like Apple releasing the iPhone, Netflix, Uber, Amazon Prime loads. And this is because they put the user at the forefront of all the decisions that they made.
So this was an amazing achievement. It was the first complete rotation that we saw of our industry. It changed the way businesses thought about their customers. It changed their culture, both internally and externally, allowing designers such as Gurmit, myself, and hundreds of thousands across the globe to start creating experiences that people actually love, shaping the technology to support it, rather than it being the other way around.
However, the next wave of challenges is already here. And the challenge isn't just for designers, it's for everyone, which is to reach net zero by 2050. And you will have already seen news like this of climate disasters impacting and affecting communities around the world. Designers now need to produce products and services that are both good for people and the planet at the same time for us to reverse the amount of damage we've had in the past. Now, this change is, everyone's already aware of this change and it's already happening in front of us, with global enterprises committing to be net zero by 2050 to both shareholders and customers alike. You've also got 27 countries already implementing carbon taxes. So companies that produce emissions have to pay tax on those emissions. 64 countries implementing carbon pricing, which means, which gives rise to carbon markets, essentially. So this change is profound. It's happening right in front of us. And more importantly, it's happening at a global scale. We as a design community need to work out what is our place inside this change and how do we support it.
So we are here to ask our industry to do it one more time. We need one full rotation. We would love to see an industry or a practice where design students and design practitioners enter the industry where it's not necessarily just about user-centered design anymore. Unfortunately, that's not good enough anymore, guys. We need to get into an industry that is user-centered and sustainable.
And what if we could do that? What if we could capture planetary pain points the same way we capture user pain points? And if we could we simply design those pain points out at the design stage? And if this was possible, would it mean that we could stop finding materials, extracting, refining, processing, transporting, and getting the materials into a condition that's even ready to use? It simply means we just won't ask for those materials in the first place. Now, if this was possible as well, we need a full industry-scaled movement to support it because the challenge ahead is simply too big.
So we have created a full end-to-end design methodology that will hopefully help us enable this. It has been academically peer-reviewed by David Harrison and Fabrizio Shazin from Brunel University. The carbon method uses and combines both user and planetary pain points. So we can remove those pain points at the beginning of the design stage, so right at the beginning.
We've created 7 libraries of emissions data and thousands of data point examples that allows designers to map the amount of carbon produced at each phase of using the product or service. And more importantly, by putting this data into the hands of designers, it allows us to bridge the gap between user-centered design working practices and sustainable design practices.
We have also simplified it and standardized the data for designers so they can communicate that with their teams, whether it's a small team or even large organizations. We've also broken down the data, so therefore we can understand how energy is calculated per country. Now, that's all well and good. However, how do we use that data?
So when a designer enters an organization for the first time, they aim to understand how that organization works and operates, their products and their services, but also who the users are in their culture and context. This here is a service blueprint canvas, and it's widely used by the industry already. These are usually actually quite large. They could easily wrap an entire room. And inside that room, you'd have designers, engineers, technologists, service managers, and customers. The top bar shows the different phases of a service. Above the red line is essentially all of the user needs and behaviors and the experience the user would have through each of these phases. And below the red line is how the business would respond to the user at each of those phases and how does the business support them. What we're going to do is build a high-level example today. So right at the top, we can quickly use mixed methods like qualitative and quantitative research to find out who the users are. And we can understand very quickly their needs, wants, desires, expectations, and even the pain points that they're experiencing. These get mapped directly onto the canvas. We gain evidence of the front stage activities. What is it that the user must do to complete the task to use that service in its full entirety? And we also get to have a view of their emotional experience through this, which is indicated by the green wave, whether it was a good experience, a bad experience, or something indifferent. So in the backstage, we get a chance to put on kind of investigative hats, which is taking a look at how is the business responding to the user at each phase, and how is the business supporting the user. But we also get to see inefficiencies. Where's the business not working well together? Where are the disconnects in operations? And moreover, we get to see supporting systems. Which systems are digital, non-digital, connected, disconnected. And we get to see even materials and how those materials are transported and shared. At this stage, we want to expand the service blueprint. At this stage, we want to be able to add the carbon calculations, which is how much carbon is produced at each stage. We can even take a look at how much carbon is used in the provision of the service and the usage of the product itself. But by this stage, we've got so much information, we can start to build commitments to one another. Commitments on net zero design principles, on how we can solve those problems, and even longer term commitments on how to measure the success and how we can measure ourselves in the future. When you step back, you have a very quick view in terms of the red stars. What they can tell us very quickly is how much pain does someone experience at different parts of this. So we can see user pains, we can see staff pains, and for the first time, we can see planetary pains. With the knowledge in the room and the people inside the room, we can quickly identify how to solve those problems. And this is where design comes into play. With collaborative methods, we can define opportunities and ways to solve these problems usually through prototypes. But you never get one idea. It's usually loads and loads of ideas all at the same time, and it can become a bit of a mess. But this is the first time we can take a balanced approach to design by balancing customers, business, and for the first time, the planet.
So now, with this full end-to-end process and methodology, we can start to remove and at least reduce significantly the carbon at the very design stage, which is the first of its kind in a way. Combining both data, education, and methodologies, we can promote new ways of us working, better ways of us working at an enterprise scale.
So in summary, here's some of our learnings. Designers, service managers, technologists, engineers, and customers, we all have the ability to reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere today. We have the ability to change how global organizations work and operate. Designers, we've already created one industry rotation once. We need to create that one more time for the planet. The first step is by asking the right questions. Thank you.